Basically, you can see up there a description of what this talk is about. And I found it unusually interesting. I thought the guy had a refreshing approach to the question of what it means to live a good life. And you'll see in the course of the presentation that he brings up some exercises that we could do as a group, but we don't have to. I'll play it by ear after you've heard the talk. The talk's only about 25 minutes, and then we'll have the remaining time for discussion. So let me. Is a verb? Got started a little too soon there. Okay, so let me know if you want the volume up or down at all. I put the captions on just in case anybody needs them. So this will last just a little over 25 minutes. Oh, no, hold on. Yes. You want more off? Yeah. More off? Okay. I'm sorry? Yes. It's off. You want the Zoom one off too? Yes. Okay. Off on here. Okay.
And a rabbi, and he's really all about helping people and organizations navigate ethical challenges and turn their values into action. So Ira, the bio on the TED website, it says ethicist. So how do you describe yourself?
First off, Shoshana, thank you. That's a great question to start with. I would say whenever people hear that I'm an ethicist, the first thing that they think is, well, I don't need that guy. Either I'm a good person, so I don't need someone to tell me what to do, or they don't know me, so I don't want someone to come and impose their thoughts, their beliefs, their values onto me. So usually I don't get any work when people think that. What I like to say that I do, an ethicist, is I try to help people think more creatively and make decisions based on who they want to be and what they care about. For me, it's not simply just a matter of, is this act good or bad, or is this act right or wrong? It's, are you making the decisions that speak to the goals that you have? Are your goals worth having? The values that you embody in terms of what you care about, and the applicability or the strategic implementation that you could truly achieve. So in the professional realm, that looks like organizational ethics, professional identity formation, values-driven leadership. In the personal realm, it's really about developing habits for behavior change.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into a lot of that, but you're helping people do something that feels really elusive and can be intimidating. Can you start by sharing one or maybe two strategies that people can use to help them get more clarity on what their purpose is?
Great. So first, I think we need to define our terms on purpose. Purpose is a really scary word, and I think that when we talk about purpose, oftentimes people think that there's one thing in life that the universe wants them to do, and if they don't find it, then they haven't succeeded. That scares me in a way of making people think that, like, there's only one shot, and if you don't hit that shot, then your life doesn't have the meaning that it's supposed to have. And it's not only not true, but it's unhelpful. When I think of purpose, I think about it as a self-defined long-term intention that is meaningful to you and impactful for your world. I think if you have that type of intention, it'll guide your decisions, it'll guide your behavior, it'll guide your goals, it'll provide you a sense of direction, and it'll provide that sense of meaningfulness, as opposed to just thinking about like the meaning of life. So strategies. So when I think about like how to achieve this type of purpose? And truth be told, when you know it's an intention, you know it's not a goal, it's like what you're interested in, what you care about, what you want to do, I start asking myself a number of different questions. So the first question I'll say is, what do I want to do in this situation? The second question I'll ask is, do I want to want what I want? Now, that sounds nuts. You're like,
what?
I don't understand. Does that mean, like, okay, you just really, really want it as opposed to want it? So I will give you an example. Let's say you and I were going out for dinner, and there's this dessert cart, and there is cheesecake on the dessert cart. Now, I want that cheesecake. I think it's delicious, and it's like just right there for me. But I also know that I'm incredibly lactose intolerant. So, like, the question I'm asking myself is, do I want the cheesecake, but I'm going to resist it? Or do I not want, I want to not want that cheesecake because I know that there's other things that I value. There's other things that I care about, like not being sick for the rest of the night, living in a way that allows me to live my best life as opposed to a life of constraint or restraint. So once I think about, do I really want the things that I say that I want? Well, what does this tell me about myself? Does it mean that I'm the type of person who has to organize my environment to achieve my wants or my urges? Am I someone who has to build resilience because I know that I can't change my environment or I can't nudge myself to do things? Like, what do I need to know to make good decisions? Not about the world yet, but about myself. The next question I'll ask is, well, is that the type of person that I want to be? Do I want to be the type of person that has to manipulate my environment versus work on myself? Do I want to be the type of person that wants to work on myself and not have so much concern about the environment around me? Those entail very different decisions in what I'll end up doing. And then the last question is, well, how do I achieve my wants effectively? Now, as an ethicist, you might be saying, well, you never said ought or should in any of that. Like, what should you do or what ought you do? And the reason is, if I start talking about what people should do, or if the world says what you ought to do, either you're going to say, no, right? Or you're going to say, well, now I have to do what other people are telling me or what the world tells me to do. But I want for people to do what they feel empowered to do. Your values should entail choices, not something that you aspire but never reach. So that's the strategy that I usually use.
Yeah. I can sort of see how this method would lead to more confident and values-driven decisions. So, Ira, our metrics for success often can be tied to external validation, whether it's promotions, awards, whatever. Should we rethink how we measure and define success for ourselves?
Yes. Next question? No, I'm kidding.
All right.
So, I mean, look, I'll tell you how I define success. You can tell me if it's a good definition or if it's one we should use something else. So, I'll define success as achieving your goals through and not at the expense of your beliefs and values, right? And the reason why I do that is because if you're trying to run someone else's race or play someone else's game of life, you're not going to win. Like, you don't know the rules, you don't know the skills, you don't know the challenges, and there's too much uncertainty to think about, like, what do I need to accommodate, and I don't even know who I'm playing with. Right? But if you play the game of life according to your skill set, your desires, the team that you want to have, and the game that you want to play, I mean, that's a great life to have, right? I mean, there's always risks and costs. We're never going to say that, well, if I do whatever I want, I'll be successful based on other people's metrics. But what we should be saying is, well, what do I actually really want? And let me see if I can get those metrics. So when someone asks me, like, okay, how can I be successful? Like, what does success mean for me? I'll say, okay, well, what metrics are you using? And oftentimes they'll give me like either big picture things or like roles or like positions and stuff like that. And then the first thing I'll say to them is, okay, like, let's work with what you're going with here. And I'll say, paint me a picture of what your life looks like when you achieve those things, or even while you're pursuing those things. And they'll say, what do you mean? I have this job. It's great. I'll say, what time do you wake up in the morning? Who do you talk to? How many emails do you send? Do you have friends and time for your friends? Do you care about having friends or time with your friends? Like, when you start painting that picture, what I try to do is not focus on the possessions or the status, but focus on the activities that you're engaged in. Because when you think about what you're actually doing as opposed to what you're having, like, two things are going to happen. One, You're going to stop thinking about success as possession, such that once you have it, you then say, okay, well, now what? Or you have the fear of saying, well, I thought it was going to be much more exciting, but the pursuit was actually more exciting than the possession. Like, this was a race that I don't know if it was worth running. The second thing, when you start thinking about the activities as opposed to the possessions, is the pleasure of the pursuit and the pleasure of the activity now are aligned. So your success is not simply that like momentary, I got it, but it's that continual, I'm doing it. And that's a real different perception of success.
Okay, I want to talk about a topic that comes up a lot, certainly in medicine, but otherwise, and that is burnout. It's a really big issue in a culture that's frankly obsessed with productivity. Some call this urgency culture. From your perspective, what are some of the habits and practical steps that people can take to resist the pressure that leads them to maybe overwork in the first place and can help them reconnect with their core values and their sense of purpose?
Yeah, so burnout's a really tough thing to talk about because in one respect, you don't want to say that an individual is responsible for their own burnout because there's a lot of environmental or situational factors. And if you don't recognize the environmental or situational factors, you're setting people up to fail. So that I don't want to do. At the same time, if you say the only way to alleviate burnout is to rely on the system to change, you may be waiting a really long time, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to put that out there, and then let's talk about some of the things that you mentioned. So with regards to urgency culture, I think one of the things that we really have to recognize is the difference between urgency and importance, right?
Urgency and importance.
And importance, yeah. I mean, urgency requires immediate attention, but that doesn't mean it's important, right? Like if you get an email saying, well, in the next 5 minutes, you might have an opportunity to, meet someone that could be a potential intern, right? That's urgent, and it may be important to the potential intern, but it may not be important to you, right? It's something to think about in terms of, is the necessity to respond right away based on how much weight it carries or the time pressure that's being imposed on you? Something that's important is a decision that's really significant to how you're going to live your life. But it doesn't mean it has to be urgent. Like living a healthy lifestyle, eating well, having regular medical checkups may not be urgent. I mean, I guess it depends how much you procrastinate in terms of making your calls for those appointments, but they don't have to be urgent, but that doesn't mean that they're not important. So in thinking about what we need to do, it's easy to do the urgent thing and check the box of completion. And we all get the satisfaction of, we've done it. But if we don't balance what we need to do quickly versus what we need to do for the sake of our lives, we're never going to end up making the time for those decisions of importance. Now, let's go to overwork, right? So overworking has a lot of different factors to it. You could overwork because you feel a self-pressure. Another way of saying that is you could overwork because you really like what you're doing, right? So for example, I think I might overwork.
Yeah, I think you do.
Yeah, okay, good. But it's because the stuff that I do every day at quote unquote work, and when I say quote unquote work is because like I have a bunch of different things that I do, some of which are work and some of which are volunteer. That's the stuff that I want to do anyway. Like I love helping people think through hard challenges, whether it's my neighbor or whether it's a colleague or whether it's a student. So the opportunity to do it in the office versus out of the office, like one might be considered work and one is just like what I love. You may feel overworked because not of self-pressure, but because of pressure from a boss or colleagues or friends or social aspects. That's a very different type of pressure. That's not about desire. And that's a question of like who's impacting the decisions you make or whose opinions do you value more, yours or others? That also speaks to metrics of success. You may think that you're overworking because you just don't value what you do. So you're working too hard because you just don't care about it or you don't see impact or it's not meaningful or there's no room for growth. So of course you're overworking. You're having diminishing marginal utility every hour that you spend. Like, who cares? You may, and this is I think the real crux of it, you may think you're overworking because you're actually not making room for the other things that you value. So just as an interesting story, in one of my moral leadership classes, the students went around after introducing themselves, because I make them introduce themselves all the time, and they asked themselves the question, if you had an extra hour in the day, what would you spend it doing? And they all talked about what they'd spend it doing on and so forth. And I said, do you know what that question really represents? And they're like, yeah, if I have an extra hour in the day, what would I do? And I said, no, what it really represents is, what do you think you're not spending enough time on that you wish you were? Because wanting that extra hour isn't just to say, well, I would do the exact same thing I'm doing now, but more of it. It's, what do I feel like I'm missing? So we can't give ourselves an extra hour, but what we can do is reprioritize really thoughtfully.
Yeah. You really highlight the need for intentional living in everything you've said. And this leads me to my next question, which is, in my work with Endwell and as a doctor who's cared for dying people, I've really had the privilege of learning from those nearing the end of their lives, and their experiences have really profoundly shaped my perspective on what truly matters. I've witnessed how reflecting on our own mortality can allow us to be more present, reminding us to prioritize meaningful connections and live with purpose rather than letting fear or maybe busyness dictate our lives. I know this is something that I struggle with. What kinds of tools do you give people to help them live with greater intentionality and purpose in their day-to-day lives, given that we all have limited time?
You can use all the tools that I've already mentioned in terms of asking those types of questions, thinking about importance and urgency, learning how to prioritize, having clarity, or clarifying like what exactly the issue is. And like you can't give a medical intervention unless you know what the diagnosis is. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts without a dartboard. But there is one maxim that I really love. Like I love this maxim because it hits everything for me. So there's this story in the Babylonian Talmud, which is like a Jewish religious text, where Rabbi Eliezer says that you should repent one day before you die. And that's not the maxim, because that's crazy. I mean, in a good way. What is amazing to me about it is his students then come to him and say, well, how do you know when you're going to die? Like, I need to time this right. So if I'm going to know when I'm going to die, then I can plan my day. But if I never know when I'm going to die, like, your statement means nothing to me. And then, this is what I imagine. There's no like description of it. But when I close my eyes, I imagine him having that smirk or that smile of like, oh, students, I have you now. And he says, no, of course, all the more so, you should repent today, lest you die tomorrow. What I love about that is it totally changes what we think about in terms of repentance. Like when we think about repentance, we usually think about we did something wrong, and we have to return to a status quo ante. Like we've lost something, and we need to say, I'm sorry. But you don't live every day thinking you're going to die tomorrow, saying, what did I do wrong today so I can fix it? Like that's not what he means, because that would be inapplicable. What he means about repentance is returning to the aspirational and ideal self that you have in terms of your own like self-picture. Like it's asking yourself, is this the life I should be living? Is there something more? Am I taking life for granted, or am I giving it everything that I have? It's a very different view of repentance. It's a return to what you want to be and who you want to become, as opposed to a return to what you were simply because you used to be that.
I love that. I want to touch on community, because we often think of success as an individual achievement. What role, from your perspective, do community and relationships play in understanding of what it means to live a truly fulfilling life?
That's a really good question, because it's a really hard question. I mean, I think a lot of times when we think about community, whether that's, society, neighborhoods, definitely organizations and companies, we tend to reify culture and community, meaning that we think that it's something over and above or outside who we are as individuals, right? But oftentimes when you think about community, you think about culture, right? Culture is the set of expectations that we have given the interactions that we've had, like all of us, right? Meaning culture is made up of the behaviors of individuals. So you can change culture by changing the behaviors of the individuals around you. So when you think about like the role of community, I want to start really small first. Like when you have an achievement or a success, who do you call? Who do you share it with? Now, you don't have to tell me, but I can imagine everyone in this room knows someone or has that person that they call, which means that if you want to share your successes, then you realize how social of a being you are. There's a big difference between having a success and having someone to share that success with. Once you also realize that that whole aspect of sharing and sociality goes into the final product, you know that it goes all the way through. So the problem that we really have is not necessarily the sharing of the experience. We always want to share the experience. It's thinking about if we share the success or the credit of it, it somehow takes away from our credit of it, almost as if success and achievement is a zero-sum game. Like if I say, I did this and someone else did this also, well then I did it 50%, 75%. I didn't do it wholly, right? But if success and recognition of success is a positive sum game, like sharing success and credit with someone doesn't take away because it's not a matter of like a fixed or a finite amount, then community is all the more important because you're not against the community. The community not only supports you and you support it, but you're deeply embedded within the other people's lives with whom you live.
We have an experiential activity, right? Ira, you have a really great way of helping us reframe how to connect to each other in a value-led way. And I want you to share this exercise with our audience and lead us through it. So everybody, get ready.
Sure. So, oftentimes when we think about like who we are and what we do and how we present ourselves to the world, we typically introduce ourselves through our job or through our family roles or through our community involvement, right? Like we'll say, hi, I'm Ira, I'm an ethicist. What is an ethicist? I have no idea. Or hi, I'm Shoshana, I'm a doctor. Oh, I know what that is, so I don't have to say more. But oftentimes when we think about identifying ourselves by the roles that we have, whether they're social or communal, whether they're family roles, whether they're job roles, you both rely on assumptions of, okay, everyone knows what that is, but you also hide so much. Like if I say, hi, I'm Ira, I'm a dad, you're like, great, I know you have kids, but do I know if you like them? Are you good with them? Do you spend time with them? Like, do they know who you are? All of that is hidden, right? Where if I told you that, hi, I'm a dad, but what that means for me is I love spending time with my children, but most importantly, what I love is showing them how to love the things that they do love so that they're fully invested in how they live their life. You know so much more about how I teach my children, probably the activities we do together. You might think about like what our relationship is and so forth. Like it just tells more when you think about the activities than you do about simply the roles. So, well, it also does one more thing. It reminds me of what I do and what I care about. So it's not simply just a projection outward, it's a reminder inward. So we're gonna do this as an activity. Instead of introducing yourselves to the people who you're sitting next to based on your roles, take a minute and think about what activities or interests light you up. Or how would you describe your character and the way you show up in the world? Or what beliefs or values guide you in facing challenges and opportunities? And then introduce yourself and see how that goes. All right, so now that we all introduced ourselves, we're gonna just do a real quick show of hands. So let me ask a quick question. In introducing yourself this way, how much more open were you to not only share with somebody else, but to allow that other person to share back with you? Raise your hand if you. How many of you were like, nope, I'm not doing this? Okay. Cool. So I will tell you, there was, I did this exercise with like a bunch of senior leaders and executives. And one executive told me afterwards that he had like a board meeting and it's a new board and he was like a little nervous and figured, you know what, I'm gonna not do my regular spiel. I'm gonna do what you said, even though it sounds crazy, and let's just see what happens. And he said that the feeling in the room before he introduced himself was very stiff, and in a way that almost put him on the defensive, right? It was just super closed off because it expected the formality of the scripts that we're always used to. And when he broke the script, people became human again, right? So one thing that I suggest is scripts are good. They set expectations. Scripts are also really good to break because you can see what lies underneath.
Last question, Ira. If you could change one thing about the way that we think about living a meaningful life, what would that be?
Meaning and finding meaning is an active rather than a passive endeavor. Like, let's not wait and think about how meaning can come to us. Let's search it out. Let's find it in a way that's exploratory and creative. There's one thing that I really like to tell people, partly because it's funny, but mostly because it's true. I like to tell people to think about new ways of being or new ideas or new actions as clothes that you're trying on, just to see how they fit, right? Like oftentimes when we're thinking about what can I change, the very notion of the idea of change makes us feel like we have to commit to it before we even try it. Like buying clothes from Amazon with no return policy. But if you can try things on and see how they fit, then you can see if you're comfortable in it, if you like it. And then you'll be able to see better options because you'll have more choices available to you. That's how you can squeeze meaning out of your life.
Okay. I always learn so much from you, Ira. Thank you so much for this conversation.
No, thank you.
Thank all of you.
So while we're making our donations, tell me what you thought of it. Any initial reaction of any kind? No initial reaction of any kind. Okay, fair enough. There we go. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a mic?
Yeah.
Well, I thought there was interesting stuff in there. I think there's lots of little pieces. I'm not sure how they all fit together. But it's food for thought.
Fair enough. Okay. There were some points that came up that I'd just like to explore a little bit. Early on in the talk, he asked, are your goals worth having? And that made me think a little bit. First of all, do you have any goals? And of course, those change throughout life. And we're all on the older side of things, and most of us are retired. So whatever goals we have now are almost certainly not the goals we had 20, 30 years ago. And I've seen it with retired people I know that if you really explore it, they really don't have specific goals anymore. They're happy enough to go from day to day, just taking what comes. And they're not really aiming for anything anymore, not striving for anything more. But I've also found the people who fade the fastest in retirement are the ones who don't any longer have any goals. They just don't live as long. So let me ask you, anybody want to reveal any goals they have at this stage in their life? Or maybe not. Yeah.
I've just always had a pretty open-ended goal throughout my life. And of course, I never had my own children or anything like that. So I didn't have goals to have my children be anything or whatever. But I've just always felt that I want to learn as much about the world around me while I'm here to try to get a good understanding of what's going on. And so that's pretty open-ended and it doesn't have to change.
Right.
And whether I'm actually learning or not, I read a lot, don't remember a lot, but so.
Wow.
Yeah, and but that's only, it doesn't affect the rest of the world. So I've never been particularly goal-oriented to leave a mark on the world. If my stained glass lasts, that's nice, but it's not gonna change anybody else. But so I've been lucky to be able to do what I want to do.
Great. Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah, I'd like to
Yeah.
comment. I've had a very specific goal for many, many, many years, I guess, since entering college, and I guess you could simply put the goal as I want to find peace. I want to find peace. And that sent me through all the religions trying to see, how do you find peace? And that sent me to Zen, and that sent me to Eckhart Tolle. And I'm still working on it, and I'm still cooking. I mean, it's a long road, and it keeps on extending. But yeah, I'm on it, and I'm going.
I like that.
I guess my overall goal is to be of service. And when I think about way into the future, when, not physically capable of that, not quite sure what it'll be like. And I made the decision this past week that I could no longer work at Habitat in construction. And so next week will be my last weekly meeting, and I want to stay connected and do things so that, it's kind of a big change and a big concern right now. But I think I'll always try to be connected with something that, I don't know, improves the world a little bit around me.
Anybody else?
Years ago, when I was in college, we read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And that really had an impact on me because it helped me understand what's important to a human being that's almost as essential as bread and water and sleep. I think searching for meaning in your life is just that. So for each of us, that is different. My search may lead me down that way. John's search another way, Jan's search another. But in terms of specifically what I want to do with the rest of my life, what I want to center on is to be a contributing member of society, to leave the world, if not a better place, at least to leave the people that I impacted, leave them in a good way. So when they look at me, they say, Chris did some good things. I'm glad I knew him. Even it makes me think of Leonard Cohen song, Passing Through. And it says, passing through. Oh, tell the people that you saw me passing through. Just sort of remember me and the things I tried to do. So that's it.
Good. Anybody else want to comment? If not, I got a couple other items. He talked in his talk about intentional living, and that raised a question in my mind: is sort of roughly speaking, what proportion of your time is spent on intentional living? Do you feel that 100% of the day you're always living intentionally? For me, I'd have to say, no, I don't really think that's true. Because Marge and I get up in the morning and I do the New York Times crossword and some of the other puzzles. I read the paper. I don't consider that, as I'm doing it, intentional living. It's something I'm comfortable doing. I enjoy it with my coffee in the morning. But if I'm doing something intentional in that sense, living intentionally, I usually don't start that until about noon. So anyway, anybody else want to comment on that? Well, that's a good question. What do you consider intentional living?
Yes. I mean, sorry. I mean, I'm still working. And, it's a bit of routine-based thing. I get up in the morning, get ready, feed the cats, etc., go to work. But a lot of the things that I have to do, I don't do because I like doing it, because that is the nature of the
Sure.
corporate type, because I have to do it. Somebody has ordained that I should get it done in a certain time. So I don't call it an intentional living.
Yeah.
That I call it a rather disgusting living. But to me, intentional living is that when I do something that I really like doing and I think that I am making a contribution in whatever way to I'm a scientist, so the advancement of that particular subject. That to me is an intentional living.
I got you.
Okay.
Anybody else have a thought on that?
Yeah, to me, intentional is in a way the opposite of habitual, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Like I get up every day, fix a cup of coffee, sit down at the computer, read over the news, do other stuff. I consider that intentional. I like doing it. I look forward to doing it. So I think that, but in terms of the more mundane things in life, some of it's habitual, like I fix dinner every night for Jane, but it's intentional because I think about what we're going to eat, I don't consider it a burden. I consider it a joy, something that rewards me. So I think I do a lot of things intentionally, especially when I try and buy things. I try and think about, do I want to buy it from Amazon? Do I want to buy it from Walmart? How much do I want to pay for it? So and I'm sure you lead more intentional living than you think you do.
Yeah, maybe.
That's where you try to put your values in front of what you're doing instead of just being pushed or coerced.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I know there are times in life, where actions from somebody else or from something in society cause you to react in a way, and you're taking an action, you're doing something because, in a sense, you feel forced to do it. You got to do it. Well, an obvious thing is every year you got to do your income tax, and don't want to do it, but you haven't got much choice. And there are a lot of things that happen in your life like that. A related question that came up, it's sort of the same thing I just asked, but in a slightly different way. How often do you feel you're living the life that you want? Or how often do you feel you're not living the life you want? I mean, as you go through your day, can you honestly say 100% of the time, this is how I want to live. This is what the way I want to be. Do you ever find yourself saying, at this moment, I'm sort of dissatisfied. This is not how I want to be spending my time. I would like to be doing something different. And anybody react to that?
I feel incredibly lucky. I think most of my life I've been able to do exactly what I want to do. And I think I'm also very intentional. I can't just, I get up and, well, what am I going to do today? I'm going to work on some glass. I'm going to cook. I got to have a goal of something to do. I can't just hang out. Not that I don't take afternoon naps when I feel like it or read a book, but even that is kind of intentional. But I pretty much, I get to do what I want to do, and I'm pretty happy with it.
You're very fortunate.
That's where, I mean, if I'm doing something that you define as intentional living, that to me is what I would like to do.
Yeah.
What I call as forced living, that is what gives me the paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm doing intentional living, then that is something I want to do today, I want to do tomorrow, I want to do the day after.
Gotcha.
But I have a question for you. Why do you think solving the Times crossword is not intentional living? Why do you consider sitting and solving the Times crossword is not intentional? And second,
I won't say it, yeah, I probably misspoke in a way. Yeah, it's intentional in the sense that this is what I have decided to do with this portion of my time in this day.
you like doing
That's intention.
but you like doing it.
But in the sense of working towards some goal or some aim in my life, no. When I'm doing the crossword puzzle, I'm not doing that. I'm not pursuing a goal in any sense.
But that depends on whether you're doing the New York Times crossword or the London Times crossword.
Yeah.
I think what I'm dissatisfied about is being part of a couple and being constrained from doing more of what I want. Not, I don't think there's anything I'm doing that I dislike, but not being able to do more.
Yeah, good. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had something that, in terms of, am I doing what I want to do? And in terms of music, in terms of my piano playing, I am doing exactly what I really have wanted to do for a long time. And it just continues and it'll go on forever. Jazz piano, and it's extraordinary.
Great.
In my life with my muscular dystrophy, it's definitely impacted what I would like to be doing. So instead of wanting to go around the world and see things, it's like, that's too much trouble. I'm going to have too much trouble navigating to do things. Plus, as we get older, we have to look at where are we going in our lives, and is my ultimate trajectory to see as much of the world as possible. And I applaud Gretchen for what she's doing, or do I want to have a more safe and comfortable and secure thing? So, Jay and I are looking at continuing care retirement centers and trying to save our money for that. But I still want to go see my daughter Morgan in California. So we're going to spend some money on that. We're not going to quit doing that. But the muscular dystrophy has definitely impacted what I thought I would be able to do with my life at this point. But every day I wake up, I try to be happy that I'm still ambulatory. I can still drive my car. My mind's pretty good. So, and it's a mixture, but overall I'm happy. I'm content. And contentment versus happiness are two. Happiness is like a sudden surge to me. Contentment is like, I think I'm okay with it,
I think as you get older, that shift from looking for happiness, looking for contentment, changes. Yeah. And I think at our age, a lot of us are looking for contentment.
Just to add to that last remark, to me, happiness involves a higher kind of emotional feeling that, I feel all the time. And for a long time, I said I was content, but now I've decided I'm satisfied. That I'm doing what I can and to best my ability, and,
Well,
life is fine.
Seems to me that part of what he is preaching is looking at every minute. And I guess that when I think about it in terms of spaces of time, which is to say that every once in a while I just flake out and I can't handle it and I go to bed for a day or whatever. But I tend to be more looking at it over a 6-month span or a year span and saying, what did I do when I wasn't flaking out that was useful and that I wanted to do? And do I still have enough of those in my existence that makes me feel useful? But it's a much less minute to minute thing than what he's preaching, it seems to me.
Anybody else on that topic? Yeah, Mary.
So it is a little confusing because sometimes we're all talking about different concepts or using terms in different ways. But some of the things that people have been mentioning are things that give them pleasure. And when I used to, in my youthful angst, do more about evaluating how my life was going and so forth, one of the things that was on that list to check was always like, am I enjoying myself? Because I mean, hey, we didn't ask to be here. It doesn't last forever. But I'm thinking about enjoying like doing the puzzles, which I do in the morning, while watching the news and eating a nice breakfast that I fixed myself. I'm perfectly, see no reason to change that. I want to mention in terms of pleasure, a professor that I had many, many, many years ago. Actually, I learned later developed this principle. It's called the Premack principle. He learned it with rats, but apparently works with people. And that is, you can, if you think of the thing that you would most like to be doing, that's probably the thing that can reward you for doing something you would less likely be doing. So someone might be willing to fix breakfast if it meant they could do the New York Times crossword, or somebody else might be willing to do the crossword if it meant that they could fix breakfast. So it really depends on what gives you pleasure, how you prioritize things.
Yep.
But I just think it's okay to just enjoy yourself a little bit.
Just a couple more, and that'll probably be enough. Who's the first person with whom you want to share a success of it? If you have some success or something happened that you want to share, who for you is the first person you want to share it with?
No doubt, Christina.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easy. For those of us who are still married, that's an easy one. But I would say for me, yeah, my wife, and then secondly, my children. And I've reached the stage in my life where I don't feel I need to share a success outside of the immediate family. I don't see a lot of point in it. But anyway, anyone else want to comment on that?
Well, yeah, I usually, my brother or my niece, I would tell them, but I do enjoy, like, if I'm really pleased with the stained glass I just did, I like putting it up on Facebook and getting all the responses. And that's the thing, when I get back from a trip, I'll put that on Facebook and all my friends chime in. And I do find that I like doing that.
Good, great.
He was saying, it seems like, from what I understand what he said, that a lot of people don't want to share their success with somebody else because they're afraid they're actually giving away some of their success by literally sharing their success with somebody else. I don't feel that way. It's still, if you did it, you did it. And sharing it with somebody else actually enhances it. And also enhances them if they're on your side.
Right. Great.
Yeah, in some cases, we're kind of brought up to, well, you're bragging if
Yeah.
you're sharing your success, but I guess that never stuck with me.
I just have one more question, then we can be done with this. Right at the end of the talk, he talked about this notion of trying on a new behavior, trying on something different in your life. And that's a good way to look at trying new things. You don't have to fully commit to something before you try it out. What do you think of that idea? And do you do that very often? I know I did it once. So I'd always played the piano a little bit, but I had never had any lessons, and I wasn't very good. So I decided, late in life, in my 70s, to take piano lessons. And there was a woman in our community who gave lessons to adults, and I did it for several months, and my playing improved. But, right at the beginning of taking lessons, she said, now, if you really want to improve, you need to give yourself 2 hours every day to play piano. And I told her quite right up front, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do 2 hours. I'm willing to do an hour, but I can't sit there for 2 hours practicing. And I gave her, and I sort of stuck to that. I gave it the hour, and I improved, and I got to a certain point where I realized if I'm really going to get any better, significantly better, I do have to put in more than the hour. And I decided, well, I've tried it, and now I know what it means to get really better, and it's not that important to me. So I stopped taking lessons. I still play the piano. I still enjoy it. Well, I'll never be very good at it. And that's okay with me. Anybody else want to comment on that, of things they've tried out and ways they've tried to change their behavior in some way, and it's just a trial?
Sort of. Funny story for me. When I was having my first marriage broke down, I was having trouble. And the counselor talked to me for a long time, and we had a few sessions. He says, knowing what I know about you, what you should do is go and look at the Ethical Society of St. Louis.
Look at the
Ethical Society of St. Louis.
okay, all right.
So I went, and I went to the Sunday meeting, and then, in St. Louis, they have, so I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I was not quite sure about ethics in St. Louis, but nevertheless. And then I was sitting there listening to them and things like that. I said, these guys just sound like a cult. And I'm still not convinced that they aren't, but I gave it a try and then didn't go back.
We're still some of the worst.
And then I went back again for some other reason, and that's when I met Christina.
Okay.
So I did try out, and I didn't particularly care for it in the beginning, but then I tried again just to say, okay, maybe, just because one person came off like the guy from Jonestown.
All right. Another comment?
I don't actually try on many new behaviors these days. I have my wife, my daughter saying, oh, break out of your comfort zone. But on Facebook the other day, I saw something that said, someone said, break out of your comfort zone. And I replied, get out of my comfort zone. So, I don't know. There's opportunities, but I'm just less interested in adopting something new than I am in utilizing the skills that I have to help others. So that's sort of what, in some ways I feel like my interests are constricting. Whenever Apple announces a new release, I read over it and go, oh, just not that interesting anymore. But I hope to remain interested in life and in new things. And I think Jane will help me with that because she's not ready to do what I'm doing.
Just a quick anecdote that I've been dating Claudia for going on 2 years now or something, and I noticed a big difference. I mean, I could be very comfortable just staying home and getting something to eat and watching TV or some sports and stuff, but she really wants to always be doing something and And I've, we've gone to just cities to spend 4 days, here and there and stuff. And it's good. And it's good. Last weekend, we went out to what is it? The South Point Mall, and just going out to the mall. What a cool thing that was, man. I hadn't been to a mall in ages, but it was great. And she really is kind of definitely pushing me to get out and
Well,
do
that's
something.
good. Mary.
I think there's a few of you in here who are thinking of moving to a retirement community, which I did 3 years ago. And I just want to point out that this is a good time to try on new behaviors or the improved behaviors you already have, but your family and friends don't notice because they remember the way you used to be. So you've got all new people, and maybe you used to be late all the time, and maybe you're not anymore, but these people never knew that you were late all the time. And it's actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
Having a new start.
Okay. Good.
I think I find myself maybe more so than ever being a real creature of routine. I like to have things the way I like doing them. I've never been particularly spontaneous, and I think it's getting worse, but I like it that way. So I don't know if there was something I really wanted to do, I think I would do it, but I like the way things are.
I understand. There's one comment over there.
Claudia makes fun of my routines all the time. Oh, another routine.
This is over 10 years ago. I was asked to be on the faculty for lay leadership summer school that the American Ethical Union put on in the mountains every 2 years. And I was thrilled because I just loved my session there and looking forward to, the programs, the people and the staff and everything. And so I was given a couple of courses to teach. One was on volunteers and the other was something else. Some materials were already there and others weren't. And so I did essentially a half-assed job in preparation, and I was terrible. And it was semi-devastating at the time, but I kept going back, I did it for 3 years until the thing kindly folded, and I got a little bit better, but it was something I kind of realized I really wasn't qualified to do, and I shouldn't have been doing it. Now, I will say that they were really scrounging for people to do it. So if I hadn't filled in a body spot and I wasn't doing anything really critical, they would have been a little bit of trouble.
I understand. Okay. Any last comments before we go to announcements?
I'll say thank you, John, for a very interesting.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Turn it over to you since you're still the MC.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, we have already collected the money. We have already talked about this. Any announcements?
I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I'd like to do a coat drive for IFC.
What drive?
Winter coats and stuff. As I mentioned, I've gone through our closet to clean it out, and I found 2 or 3 things we don't wear anymore, but are still in decent condition, even need a little mending perhaps, but I'll get them cleaned. And there's other winter things that they need also, but so I want to put a date on that of the second week after Thanksgiving week. So it's December 15th maybe, or
Yeah, something like that.
before. Anyway, so if I'll get Dorothy to put it in the newsletter, and if anybody wants to help, I'd be happy to have help, although I'm not sure there's a lot to do rather than just gather stuff up. But, take a look at what you've got, see if there's something you can pass on. winter hats, scarves. They like underwear too, but I'll put that in the notice. So, and I'll keep.
So do we bring that stuff here whenever you're
Yeah,
collecting?
bring it here to that.
So is
meeting.
it just coats or just sweaters or anything warm?
I think it's more outerwear.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does anybody know what Maura is scheduled for next Sunday? I don't.
I have no idea.
More.
Mhm. All right, then our meeting is ended. And so say hello to whoever is sitting. Huh? Oh, okay. All right, sorry.
Well, I don't have to do these closing words, but there are only a few of us. So I just got some random quotes about having to do with living the good life. Some of them are interesting. One is from Einstein. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. That's sort of interesting. That he eliminated, that he said you shouldn't tie it to other people. Babe Ruth said, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. That's a good one. And I like this Mae West quote. You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough. And a comedian, Harold Ramis, life is ridiculous. So why not be a good guy? I like that one. And then my final one is from my mother. But actually, I think she stole it from Benjamin Franklin. And that is, to put it concisely, too soon old, too late smart. She said that to me frequently. All right, that's it.
Finish out the gathering. City might as well, okay, it's all gone.